Okay, I got one last story for you, then we'll call it a day. And this involves a congresswoman from Illinois. Her name is Mary Miller. And she said in a recent interview that the best elected officials are people who fear God. Why? Because only they believe that they will eventually be held accountable for their actions. It's such a messed up thing to say that we would all be better off if more Christians were in power because only they know how to do the right thing. Let me show you the clip and then I will come back to talking about this. This is Mary Miller talking to Christian hate group leader Tony Perkins in a weirdly, creepily empty room. And I don't know why that's their backdrop.
My goal is to be faithful before God each day with each opportunity that comes in place. And I want to encourage people to run for office. Local office holders, those are very important.
And we're seeing that with school board races all across this country, how we are turning public education because parents are running for those school board seats.
School board, county board, sheriff, mayor, all very important positions. And, you know, we need people that fear God, that believe they can't hide from God, and ultimately they're going to give account to God. Those are the best people to hold positions, whether it's local or in the federal government.
Like, what the hell? Just to be clear, there's nothing wrong with encouraging people to run for office at any level. I am encouraging you to do that too. A lot of very thoughtful, smart people talk themselves out of doing just that. But the idea that we are better off with godly people, and let's be clear, she is only referring to other Christians like herself. That's not just a bigoted statement to make, it's totally untrue. Like, Mary Miller is living proof that Christians are not sending their best. Right? Her comments effectively say that atheists should be shut out of politics, at least in theory, if not in law, because, you know, we don't have any morals. We don't have any moral standard. We can't possibly do the right thing. She also really doesn't want Muslims or Jews or even progressive Christians in power either, because it's not like she thinks we're better off with President Joe Biden, who is a devout Catholic. She doesn't think that's good, right? And here's an example of some of the stuff she said, because she is an insane one. The far left atheist quest for power has, I don't know why that's necessarily in quotations unless Lauren Boebert said it there, but the far left atheist quest for power has created a mental health crisis, a drug addiction crisis, a crime wave, and a homelessness crisis. Why doesn't the New York Times cover what leftists have done in all these cities? I'm not the first to say this, but there are plenty of red states and red cities that have higher crime rates than any of the places she just mentioned. But this idea that atheists are in charge of these places, I promise you, as someone who covers atheists for a living, that is news to me, because I promise you the leaders of those cities are very religious people themselves. And who's stopping us from addressing a lot of those crises? I'm not saying Democrats deserve a lot of credit on a lot of these issues, but I know for a fact that Republicans have hindered progress on a lot of those issues. So what the hell is she talking about? Here's another example of how batshit crazy she can get. This is from Christmas Eve a couple years ago, a year ago. This Christmas Eve, please join me in praying for the Christians being persecuted by the Biden Department of Justice for peacefully praying outside of abortion clinics. Pray for an end to abortion and a return to a government that upholds our constitutional right to peacefully pray and protest. She's mad because they were not just praying peacefully. Some group of people were trying to block an abortion clinic and they got punished for it, and she's mad about that. That's who Mary Miller is. But again, if you've heard of Mary Miller, it's not because of those tweets. It's because of something very different. It's because on January 5th, 2021, just the day before that little insurrection attempt, she showed up at a rally and she quoted Hitler. And here's an example of a headline that talked about this. Illinois Congresswoman says Hitler was right on one thing. I promise you, that didn't go over well. That's the only thing she was known for. And then, making it even better, Mary Miller, after the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade, she gave a celebratory address, and she got in the news because she made a big slip. Let me show you the headline because, again, oh my God. Representative Mary Miller calls Roe decision victory for white life. And she says later, you guys, I was trying to say right to life. It just slipped. And I accidentally made a racism. That's Mary Miller for you. That's the best version of what Christians have going for them, according to her, because you need people like her in office, right? And again, forget even the religious aspect. Let's say all of those things are slips of the tongue because she doesn't know how to do the talking. She's also not good at her job. Like on paper, she's not good at her job. This is an article from a local newspaper that basically pointed out how Illinois lawmakers, like congresspeople, had gotten a lot of money for their respective districts because all Congress members do. You can put in the appropriations bill. I need $1 million for this project in my district. I need $2 million for transportation issues in my district. And this is what this article said in the News Gazette here. Let me show you this here. But those in the 15th congressional district represented by Mary Miller are shut out again. No community project funding dollars are going to any part of the huge area, more than a third of the state in Miller's district. As a member of the conservative House Freedom Caucus, Miller pledged to oppose community project funding, earmarks, or any other euphemism for what has long been known as pork barrel spending. Fine, but what good is it to your constituents if everyone else is getting dinner and you're not, but you're still helping pay the bill? Which is absolutely right. Her constituents pay taxes just like everybody else, but because they have a crappy congresswoman in place, they don't get any of the benefits that Congress could easily give them to help improve their lives. And this goes back to a theme of every episode of this live stream, which is that Republicans are in power to make your lives worse. Mary Miller is the epitome of that. And yet, she goes on these interviews and she's like, you know what we need in Congress? More people like me because I believe in God. And that's the only person I listen to because she sure as hell isn't listening to constituents. And again, Illinois, by the way, is a gerrymandered state. It's gerrymandered in favor of Democrats. And that's a good thing for the country. If you want to get rid of gerrymanders, get rid of them all across the country. It would hurt Republicans in the long run. But again, she's not at risk of losing her seat because she represents a bunch of mostly white evangelical conservatives who think Democrats are evil. And so, of course, they're going to vote for people like her. And they never consider the fact that they're screwing themselves over by voting for Christians like her. And these are the same people, by the way, who are going to vote for Trump in 2024. They don't care. By the way, Mary Miller says we need more Christians in office. Who's the guy that she's going to endorse? And she celebrated his endorsement of her. It's Donald Trump, the thrice married racist who paid hush money to porn stars he was having an affair with when his current wife was pregnant with his 5th child. The guy who faces 91 criminal charges, the sexual abuser, the 2 Corinthians guy, the guy who bragged about grabbing women without consent because he's a celebrity, the guy who lies about everything, the guy who says he doesn't need forgiveness, the guy who couldn't name his favorite Bible verse in an interview, the guy who held up a Bible in front of a church after his team used tear gas to drive away peaceful protesters. That's their idea of a Christian that they all ought to support. Like, there isn't a single white evangelical church in America who would hire Donald Trump to be their pastor, at least if they wanted to be taken seriously. But more than half of Republican voters, most of whom would probably describe themselves as conservative Christians, they seriously believe Trump is a person of faith. And Mary Miller, who quoted Hitler and celebrates white life and can't do her job well, she's also saying, yep, you need people like us. We're the good ones. Like, it's not that Christians can't be good public servants. As I said before, there are plenty of them who are. It's that Christians like Mary Miller are wholly unsuited for the job of representing the people in their district. Because if someone feels that they are accountable only to God, and not accountable to the voters, then they're going to make bad decisions. They don't deserve to be in public office. And by the way, the guy interviewing her, Tony Perkins, his own background involves dabbling with white supremacy, which he denies, and posing in front of the Confederate flag, which he can't deny because there are pictures of that. Did he ask her about any of this? Did he point out the hypocrisy? Of course he didn't, because he's an interviewer who works for the Christian right. He is a Christian right guy. He doesn't think anything she said was a problem. He's fawning over her instead of actually interviewing her. She's never accomplished anything worth praising. So naturally, all he does is praise her. But again, as awful as he is and as awful as she is, Mary Miller is in elected office. Why? Because people like her think they need to be in elected office. And a lot of people way smarter than both of them talk themselves out of it because they don't think they're absolutely perfect. So I'm just saying, run for local office, at least if you can. You would do so much better than these horrible, horrible people. Because especially in Congress, US Congress, when people like her get elected, every single one of us pays the price for her ignorance and her inability to do anything useful.